Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Alicia Smith. I'm the Associate Director of Digital Engagement here at NJIT. Thank you for joining us to kick off the second session of the Highlander Alumni Personal Growth Series. I'm excited to welcome you to tonight's session, which focuses on the enhancing your decision-making by relying on positive uncertainty. The Highlander Alumni Personal Growth Series focuses on lifelong learning, self-discovery, and skill development for individuals to achieve their full potential. Our goal through this series is to inspire and guide participants on their journey of continuous personal growth, equipping them with the tools, mindset, and strategies to thrive in both personal and professional aspects of their lives. This is a 5-part series that will take place virtually once a month until May. Before we jump in, I just want to share some details on how things will work tonight. When you entered, your microphones were muted, and we kindly ask that you please keep your microphones muted during the presentation. We want this session to be interactive, so there will be times when you'll have a chance to ask questions or share comments, and we'll let you know when those times happen. You're welcome to either keep your video on or off, whatever you're most comfortable with. Please feel free throughout the session to type questions or comments into the chat box. We'll take some time to answer those at the end of the session. And lastly, this session will be recorded and available on demand. So let's get started. In this session, you will become familiar with the concept of positive uncertainty, assess how often they currently rely on positive uncertainty, examine the decision-making process, and leverage the 2x2 Eisenhower matrix for decision-making. It's now my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Dr. Michael Edmondson. Dr. Edmondson is the Associate Provost for Continued Learning at NJIT and the Vice President of Professional and Corporate Education at the New Jersey Innovation Institute. Dr. Edmondson also teaches as an adjunct for the Humanities and Social Sciences Department in the College of Science and Liberal Arts at NJIT and in the Graduate Program for Nonprofit Management at Drexel University's Goodwin College of Professional Studies. He's the author of 8 Business Expert Press books. Dr. Edmondson's latest book, published in 2023, is Nurturing Equanimity, Building a Caring Culture. I'm now pleased to turn it over to Dr. Edmondson.
Thank you, Alicia. I appreciate that. And Alicia, you'll monitor the chat just in case people have comments or questions, and I will do my very best to self-monitor myself and make sure I have 10 minutes at the end there for questions. So you can also feel free to interrupt and say, there's 15 minutes left or something, Alicia, that's fine. So hello, everyone. I won't be able to see you. People keep coming in. This is what happened last time. So I'm actually going to share my screen and start. And thank you, everyone. Great to see everybody here. I don't know how many were involved in the last one on the growth mindset, but this is a different topic here. This is it's related, but it is different, known as positive uncertainty. As you'll learn, there's a whole field of research out there on this concept of positive uncertainty and its influence on decision-making, and specifically as a tool that you can use in making decisions. So, Alicia, I'm assuming everyone can hear me. I'm assuming you can hear me because I cannot see a single person now because I've minimized the screen. So I'll just get started. I'll give you my email address at the end if you feel like following up. Several people did last time. I welcome that. Happy to answer any additional questions. And there's some books as well that I mentioned here. I really would highly recommend any of these books. There's really fantastic literature out there. And I noticed in the chat, there's a comment. Let's see. Can hear and see you. Thanks. Awesome. Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate that. So I would recommend that you get a pen and pencil. You will need to keep score tonight. You're going to complete a self-assessment. This whole Highlander Personal Growth Series is about you looking at yourself. Something that we actually don't do enough as humans for any number of reasons. That in and of itself is probably an hour-long webinar, but we will go down that road tonight. So this is all about self-awareness. I think if you want to grow as a professional, you have to grow as a person. Therein lies a difficult hurdle for many professionals to jump over. They simply just don't have the wherewithal to grow as a person. I've seen it firsthand, and it's unfortunate. Sometimes that limit of growth is because there's a lack of self-awareness. Some of the most self-aware people I know and have worked with are very happy being where they're at and have no desire to go up the ladder or over the jungle gym. That's another paradigm of professional development. And they're very happy where they're at, and they can work 30 years in the same job, and that's fantastic. But for those of us, especially those that really want to spend some time getting to know themselves, this process of asking yourself questions and reflecting upon lots of things that I want to throw at you in the next 45 minutes is really critical. So have pen and paper. You can ask questions in chat, especially towards the end. And I always preface this by saying you may be or find yourself a little bit uncomfortable. If this was in person, it's a different culture, right? Because I do walk around and I look at people, and I can kind of sense from your expression on your face that what we're talking about is a bit uncomfortable for you. Obviously can't do that virtually. But just know that growth only happens outside of our comfort zone. We never grow when we're comfortable. So one of the keys that I've learned studying successful people for well over a decade from all walks of life is that one of the things they have in common is they stay outside their comfort zone very often. They continue to challenge themselves. So the very first quote I'm going to give you tonight, I'm going to give you a bunch of them, is from Colonel Powell, Colin Powell. And he said, to be an effective decision maker, you need to get comfortable with making a call without all the data you think you require. And this is really the underlying theme tonight. We make decisions, hundreds, thousands a day, and when you're really good at making decisions, you have an understanding that some decisions you will make, you will not have all the data. So, and if you manage people and they have to make decisions, then how supportive are you in their decision-making process? I mean, how often do you even think about how your team members make decisions? And then, like, how often do you have sit down with everyone and process the decision-making process? Sadly, it's actually not too often. So there's a brand new report that came out, and I thought it was quite interesting, and I wanted to just give you these three numbers. According to the one latest report, and the link is down below, it takes 2 days to make an operational decision, 7 days to make a tactical decision, and 20 days to make a strategic decision. I thought that was really interesting, the length of time required to make an operational, tactical, or strategic decision. And I mean, if you're really interested, you can go to that link and get the report. And this report took a look at organizations last year and kind of the impact of not having all the data you need to make a decision. And I'm always fascinated by how organizations make operational, tactical, or strategic decisions. One of the fascinating things from the survey that came out was 66% of the respondents, a cross-section of industries and positions in different industries around the nation, 66% of those believe the future of decision-making is a combination of human and machine. I mean, that's so wild, right? We did not have that possibility, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I mean, AI has been around for a while, but the cascade of influence that ChatGPT has had alone, and there's 100 other AI tools now over the last year, has just been substantial. So the fact that humans and leaders, managers are acquiescing and realizing that, yeah, we're going to be making decisions in alignment with some machine. It's really fascinating to me. I think it just adds to all the uncertainty. We do live in a VUCA world. It's an acronym I probably say in every presentation. VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. It was born in the 1980s, the military term used to describe the Cold War. Kind of got reemerged and used in the 2008 financial crisis, and now is just part of the nomenclature in business literature to talk about managing and leading in a VUCA world, especially a post-COVID VUCA world, which is even more volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So the first book I'm going to refer you to, and the first mini exercise, is The Chaos Theory of Careers. That probably came out, 2010, 2012. And it's a new perspective on working in the 21st century. I highly recommend everyone on this call read this book, even though it is about 10 years old now. It is fantastic if you're at all concerned about career development today. So I'm going to just read a paragraph from the opening of the book, and I read this 10 years ago, and I, again, use it all the time. I think it's fascinating, right? Uncertainty reveals limitations, and limitation signals vulnerability. But it also reveals something else, something about us that is less defensive and more positive, more hopeful. If uncertainty exposes our limitations of knowledge and power, it also suggests at least that there may be potentials within us and possibilities around us, potentials within us and possibilities around us that we may currently be unaware of, but that may be awaiting us if we would but have the courage to run the gauntlet of uncertainty. That is, to risk vulnerability and failure in the quest for opportunity and achievement. So the opening question tonight, and this is not scored in any way, it's just a rhetorical question that you should ask yourself quite often. How often do you have the courage to run the gauntlet of uncertainty? Another way of phrasing that is, how certain must you be before you make a decision, before you ask for the promotion, before you take on an assignment you're not fully prepared for, before you search for a new job, before you leave a toxic culture that you've been wanting to leave for so long? Can you run the gauntlet of uncertainty? And I would argue those that can and practice this habit, because so much of life is a habit, are those that are wildly successful. And more importantly, live life on their terms, not on someone else's terms. So how often do you run the gauntlet of uncertainty? I love that phrase. How often do you risk vulnerability and failure in the quest for opportunity and achievement? There's all kinds of sub questions here, right? Which is, how often did your parents encourage you to risk vulnerability and failure? How often do your managers, does your partner, your wife, your husband, your grandmom, your grandpa, whoever is in your life, how often do they encourage you to run headfirst into the gauntlet of uncertainty, right? My goodness, it is so important to consider. So that's our warm-up exercise. Our lead scholar tonight here is H.B. Gellert, who actually just died. I think it was 91 or 92 when he died a few years ago. He is the father of positive uncertainty. And he put forth years ago the 4 fundamental beliefs of positive uncertainty. Be focused and flexible about what you want. And we're going to look at these in great detail. You don't have to write these down. We're going to look at these in great detail. This is where the assessment is. Be aware and wary about what you know. Be objective and optimistic about what you believe. Be practical and magical about what you do. He spent decades teaching and writing and consulting on this concept of positive uncertainty. He is literally the father of positive uncertainty. His last book before he passed away was Future Sense, See the Forest and the Trees. And then his book that made him very well known, Creative Decision Making. He and his wife actually created and launched a consulting company and helped organizations incorporate positive uncertainty in their decision-making process. So tonight's presentation is in honor of H.P. Glatt and his 4 beliefs. So now what I'm going to do is ask you to keep in the back of your mind any 10-day period. It could have been the last 10 days. It could have been 10 days in January. You pick it. I mean, I wouldn't go back too far. And you're going to be asked 4 times 4 is what, 16? You're going to be asked 16 questions. And you're going to be asked to score yourself based on the frequency by which you practiced that specific habit. And we'll get to the first one in a minute. So during any 10-day period, for example, just for fun and games, if you're using the last 10 days, during the last 10 days, how often did you eat pizza? Well, for me, it's like always 9 to 10. So I would get 4 points because I love pizza. And if you sometimes ate it, maybe you had it 3 times over the past 10 days, you would give yourself 2 points. And I hope that is clear. That scale will remain at the bottom right of all these 16 pages coming up. This is to help you plot yourself on a graph at the very end so that you can have a visualization. I'm a big fan of visualizing where you're at. Last month, we did the mindset spectrum. And again, none of this is like good and bad. I don't want to label anything like that. I think that's terrible to do. This is just a tool to help you assess the degree by which you practice positive uncertainty. That's all it is. And if you choose never to practice it, all the best to you. If you choose to practice it all the time, all the best to you, right? My job is to help you look inside and to glean some self-awareness that perhaps wasn't there. So the very first one here, they're just going to move this guy down, is to be, we're going to look at the first principle of the 4 principles of positive uncertainty. Be focused and flexible about what you want. So the very first question is, in alignment with that statement, how often do you navigate the unpredictable twists of your life's journey? Right? And Steve Jobs, in his famous Stanford commencement speech back in 2014, 2015, said you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. That is like the epitome of positive uncertainty. You're going to start a new job. You're going to move to a different department. You're making a major personal decision, right? And you want to be certain, but you know that there is nothing certain in life. So, and you want to think, all right, well, if I'm looking back, 5 years from now, well, I've made the right decision. You don't know. You have no idea, right? So to that end, how often do you navigate the unpredictable twists of your life's journey? There's a saying, right, that, what is it? God laughs, man plans and God laughs. You might have it all figured out. I've met people that have got to be in control, got to be in control. I'm in control of my life. I control everything. Okay. Yeah, I don't have any control over anything. I'm not going to tell you my life story, but trust me, I gave up control long time ago. And I try to really navigate life's unpredictable journey. So during any 10-day period, and if it's, again, the last 10 days, ask yourself, how often did you recognize you were navigating the unpredictable twists of your life's journey? Give yourself a score of 0 to 4. And that's the first of 4 for this principle. The second principle here about being focused and flexible about what you want is being stubborn, because you have to be focused. Jeff Bezos, right, founder of Amazon, left a 6-figure paying job in Wall Street. His boss thought he was crazy. He and his wife drive across the country to start Amazon. And, people are like, what are you doing? Like, what's this thing, the internet? What's e-commerce? And he said, if you're not stubborn, you'll give up on experiments too soon. And it's true. It's okay to be stubborn. If you want to be focused, you've got to be stubborn, right? I think that's important. I'm a Taurus. I'm very stubborn. Ask anyone around me on a daily basis. It's good and bad, I suppose. But you do have to be stubborn if you want to achieve what it is that you want. At the same time, that's the duality of this principle. You have to be flexible, right? That was the first question. Now, this question looks at the focus part. How often do you remind yourself to be stubborn? If you come across a hurdle along your life path, do you just like give up? Oh, well, that's too hard. I can't get over it. I can't get under it. I can't get around it. I can't go through it. Okay, good. Then quit. That's good. Quit. Yep, that's right. You should quit. You should quit. It's too hard. But you got to ask yourself, am I stubborn enough to stay focused here? Because what I want is critical. I mean, that's up to you. I mean, whenever I talk to people and work with people, I don't make any decisions for them. I do this. I ask them questions. Who are you? Most of the people, I don't know. Good. Well, let's go through these questions. Third thing within flexibility and being focused. How often do you differentiate working for something you don't care about compared to putting your time and energy into something you do care about? You have to understand the difference. And Simon Sinek, who wrote Start With Why, it's another great book you should read, Start With Why. So, working hard for something we don't care about is called stress. Working hard for something we love is called passion. I do have some philosophical conflicting issues with the use of the word passion, but we're going to let that go for now. You have to differentiate. Okay, I'm working for a job that pays the bills. How much stress do I want that to cause me? Because at nights, on the weekends, or in the mornings, whatever the case may be, I'm actually doing something that I care about and I love. And I think part of practicing positive uncertainty is realizing that your life is not one-dimensional. Your life just isn't work. Your life is so much more than work. And I have found that people that struggle with moving on in life is that they place all their blame on their boss or the toxic culture or their lack of pay or their coworkers. And I'm like, yeah, but what do you care about in life? Like, is your focus on the right thing? Your parent is sick. Your child's struggling in school. Yeah, but my boss. Oh, for the love of God. Like, forget trying to control your boss. Focus and flex your spirit towards that which you care about. And people just can't. They struggle with it. They struggle with it. I understand. I get it. I really do. But if you're going to engage in positive uncertainty, you have to be focused and flexible. You've got to shift your vision. You got to get your eyes off of yourself and onto others to whom you care about. And finally, how often do you remind yourself that great performers stay focused? Now, focused is not the same as stubborn. Very different, right? Focus is just that. And Daniel Goleman, his research on emotional intelligence, there's all kinds of good books on emotional intelligence, you should read as well. The ability to stay focused on the most important task is a defining characteristic of high performers. The only thing I would add to that is over an extended period of time. There's no such thing as an overnight success. That's a myth. There's a great, I forget who said it, but someone said, it took me 20 years to become an overnight success. How long can you stay focused on your goal? I think this is really important. So during any 10-day period, how would you score yourself there? So here's the summary. You had 40 points. You were given a 0 to 10 scale for each of these 4 questions regarding be flexible, focused and flexible about what you want. You should have a score between 0 and 40, right? And I'll just quickly go through those again. You had this one, score yourself out of 10, stubborn, caring, and then focused. So we're going to do the other 3 principles of positive uncertainty that way, and then you're going to plot yourself. So that's why your score is critical to know here moving forward. So the next principle is be aware and wary about what you know. This is one of my favorite illustrations of all time. This is what I call the knowledge pie chart. There is the smallest piece of the pie, which is what we know we know. A little bigger piece of the pie is what we know we don't know. What we know we don't know. And then the largest piece of the pie is what we don't know that we don't know. And the first time someone hears that, they look at me like I have three heads. You don't know what you don't know. So if you want to be aware and wary about what you know, you have to surround yourself with people. I do. I just hired a few people. It's very important to surround yourself with people that feel comfortable telling you what you don't know that you don't know. I mean, if you surround yourself with people that know everything, well, I'm impressed. I mean, I have a PhD in history and I don't even know everything about history, but there are people that, boy, they just know everything about everything. It's very impressive. I don't know how they do that, but okay, their knowledge pie, I guess, is one piece. I know everything about everything. You probably know some of these people. You probably work with them. It's quite impressive. I have a healthy skepticism about my knowledge. I know I don't. In fact, one of my favorite things to do is I always ask people on my team, all right, what don't I know? What don't I know? Tell me something I don't know. Well, did you know this? I'm like, oh, I kind of defer to Einstein, who said, the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know. And I also am very skeptical about people that do know everything about everything. Really? Really? I don't know. I don't know. Really a lot of skepticism there. How often do you welcome doubt when processing your thinking? Right? Richard Feynman, the renowned physicist, said it is our responsibility as scientists to teach how doubt is not to be feared, but welcomed and discussed. In a business meeting, doubt is often known as pushback. And some managers and leaders welcome pushback. They create environments that support pushback. And then there are other work cultures that absolutely, I've worked in them. You are not allowed to push back. You cannot express doubt at all because whoever was speaking, that's it. They have the floor and they control the conversation. That is a terribly toxic work environment. Same thing with families, right? I mean, families are the same way. I mean, I have two grown adult children. And so we welcome doubt in our conversations. It's very important. That's a sign of maturity as an adult to welcome doubt, to have doubt as your friend as you go through the daily runnings of your life. I don't know what it would be like to go through life with such a high level of certainty. I don't understand what that means. Life is too VUCA to have any high degree of certainty, but there are those that do. It's quite impressive. I don't. I am aware and wary about what I know, and I love to learn every day. How often do you catch yourself being overconfident in your opinions? This is very critical now. We haven't talked about confidence. How often are you being overconfident in your opinions? Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize winning economist, what was his book? Thinking Big and Small, said we're generally overconfident in our opinions and our impressions and judgments. I mean, there's a guy that spent his life studying decision making. I mean, that's what he won the Nobel Prize for. He identified two ways the brain makes decisions: short-term thinking, long-term thinking. It's a great book. Another book you should get. And if I do catch myself being overconfident, and then I'm like, no, nope, this is not good. Don't be overconfident. And I remind myself to be wary about what I know. Why am I overconfident? Have the self-awareness to catch yourself in your level of overconfidence. And why do you need to be overconfident? Does your ego need to be stroked so much that you're overconfident in your decisions, your opinions, your judgments? I don't understand. I literally, my wife of 38 years, she always laughs at me because you talk to yourself more than you talk to anybody else. I'm like, I know, because I'm having conversations with myself. I'm catching myself thinking, and that's okay. I mean, you're kind of a, you know, everyone on this call is a smart person, right? You're a very smart person. Start to have conversations with yourself so you can catch yourself and be aware and wary about what you know. And then finally, in this last principle here, this is the whole workshop right here. This is a whole like 2-hour workshop on double loop learning. I'm just going to briefly touch upon it here. It was designed by Harvard researcher Chris Argus back in the 80s. Generally, what happens is most of us engage in single loop learning, which means, okay, our sales goal was $1 million. Did we hit it or not? No. Okay. Double loop learning says, well, wait a minute. Why is $1 million the goal in the first place? And if you Google this, you'll see the famous example is like the thermostat. The thermostat is set at 68. Did it reach it? Yes. Then it shuts off. That's single loop learning. Double loop learning says, well, wait a minute. Why is it even set at 68? Is that the right temperature? Should it be 69, 70, 67? What are we doing? So you have to get comfortable asking yourself why you're doing what you're doing. And a lot of leaders will not do this. A lot of managers will not do this. A lot of professors will not do this because this is hard work. This is one of the harder aspects of positive uncertainty. You have to have a brutally honest and transparent conversation with yourself about why you're doing what you're doing. And you have to do it with your team. And more importantly, if you're a leader or manager on this call and you have people under you, you have an absolute responsibility to create the environment that allows your people to speak freely about why they're doing what they're doing. And I've been consulting and presenting for over 20 years, and I will often kick out the manager or leader from the conference room. I can tell pretty quickly this is a good environment, or this boss does not allow anyone else to talk but him or herself. Out. And I make that stipulation before I get hired. I have the right of first refusal. I refuse for you to be in the room. I can just tell by the body language of the people as they walk into the conference room. They're excited to be there, or they're like, oh God, she's there. Oh man, what's the point? I'm not going to be able to talk. No. Really, really engaged professionals realize double loop learning is hard work, but do it anyway. We can do hard things. You really can do hard things. So again, you should have 40 points. You should have a score from 0 to 40 based out of those 4 questions about be aware and wary about what you know. So on to the third one. Be objective and optimistic about what you believe. So a simple one here is how often do you ask questions? I teach my people, you're not going to be, you'll be, there's KPIs, right? There's objectives that you got to meet, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, what I'm really interested in is I measure your ratio of declarative sentences that come out of your mouth versus the questions that come out of your mouth. If 90% of the words coming out of your mouth are declarative, meaning like, I'm telling you what I know. So only 10% of the time you ask questions? That's not healthy. That's terrible, in fact, absolutely terrible. So I will stop people when they're talking to me and I will say, rephrase it as a question. And they'll look at me like, again, I have 3 heads. I'm like, no. You're speaking to me as if you know this. You don't know it. So phrase it as a question. Demonstrate your willingness to learn about this. Put what you know aside. And it is a challenge for some. I've seen people struggle. They're like, yeah, I know. I'm like, no, you don't know this like you think you know it. So rephrase your statement as a question. That way, it allows you to be objective about what you believe. It allows the door to remain open. If you want to run the gauntlet of uncertainty in your professional life, in your personal life, you have to ask questions. There's really no way out on this. You don't have to score a 10. You don't have to always do it, but you got to sometimes do it. You got to at least be a 3 here. And if you're not, well, you've identified one area to work on. That's towards the end here. The second or third one, I forget where we're at here, would be objective and optimistic about what you believe. How often do you seek to understand compared to being afraid of something? Marie Curie, again, Nobel Prize winning scientist, said nothing in life is to be feared, it is only to be misunderstood. I think this is very important. Like, if you catch yourself being afraid of something, well, how much do you understand it? I mean, I do it all the time. I'm like, oh, I have this fear of whatever concept is, in front of me. And I realize, oh, I'm fearful because I don't know. I don't know what this is about. I should investigate. I should spend some time with myself. Fear is this emotion. I don't want to chase it away. I don't want to close my eyes to it. I don't want to bury my head to it. I should seek to understand it because I would like to be objective and optimistic. And it's hard to be optimistic when you're fearful. So why are you fearful? Have a look at that. I think that's important. And then how comfortable are you with having questions that can't be answered? I mean, again, with Feynman, stole another one of his quotes, I'd rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned. I've worked in places where you can't ask questions, where someone has said something, and I'm like, well, that doesn't make much sense. Can you explain? My favorite, and then you can write this down in your notes, the best question that you can ask anyone is, 3 words, or is it 4? Can you help me understand? 5, sorry. Can't think and speak at the same time. Can you help me understand? Can you help me understand? And if someone says no, you better start looking for another job or a new relationship. You can't help me understand. I'm not judging. I'm not judging what you said. I'm just seeking more information. Well, no, that's it. I've spoken. Okay. Okay. Great leadership, great management, great partnering, fantastic friend. Can you help me understand? Most people will say yes. Let me help you understand. But you've got to be comfortable with having questions that there are some questions that can't be answered. I don't know, but that's just life. It's VUCA, right? It's VUCA. It's volatile, uncertain, it's complex, it's ambiguous. Some questions can't be answered. You have to be comfortable with that. And then if you get obsessed with finding an answer, well, that's a whole other issue. Then you got to really look at how you're spending your time. Why are you spending so much time trying to find an answer to a question that really just doesn't have a logical answer? And why can't you let it go? Letting go is a whole other aspect of this, which we don't have time to get into. Why are you holding on to this? Then there's a control factor. And then that leads back to certainty. It's all connected. It's like the DNA of the human body. It all leads back. It's all connected here. And if you don't understand these individual parts, you can't understand your individual whole as a human. And that's going to make life very difficult. So I think you should get comfortable with having questions that can't be answered. And then finally here, how often do you have hope amidst the chaos of life? You have to be optimistic. As Helen Keller said, nothing can be done without hope and confidence. I always state the obvious when I talk about hope. Hope only happens in the dark. Hope only exists when we're lost, when we're struggling, when we can't see a way forward. Hope doesn't happen when there's rainbows and sunshine and unicorns. Hope doesn't happen on a beautiful day down by the beach and you're chilling and your cell phone is off. You don't have no need for hope. I mean, you might hope the sun stays out a little bit longer, but that's not the hope we're talking about here. How often do you have hope amidst the chaos of life? when everything is hitting the fan, when it's all falling apart, when it's one thing after another, can you stop, catch yourself, and remind yourself that you have the power, and I do use that word power, to choose hope? And some people don't. And I understand. I understand. Some people do not have hope amidst the chaos of life. No, this was put to the greatest test of me 2 years ago when my mother was dying, and I was there by her side. I was very fortunate to spend time with her towards the end of her life, and it just devastated me, right? She was such a dear friend of mine, not just my mom, but a real dear friend, and we spent so much time together after Dad died. I promised my dad I would take care of her, and my sister did a wonderful job, and my faith and hope was challenged, really pushed to the limit. And there were days I had no hope, and then I would catch myself. You got to stop. You got to stop. Everyone's mother's going to die. You know this. You know the reality of life. You know the end game. Find hope again. Be objective and optimistic about what you believe. Find the hope. I had the conversation with myself. It was hard. It was painful. I struggled. Yes, but I reminded myself I had the power of hope, and I exercised that power, and it helped me get through. This is important. This is very important. And other people are watching you. We haven't even talked about that. If you have kids, your kids are watching you. If you have people you manage, they're watching you, right? People are looking at how you respond to the complexity and ambiguity of life. Then you have to ask yourself, well, what kind of role model do you want to be? This is important. These are critical questions to ask yourself. So this is the third part here. You should have a score out of 0 to 40 again, because you asked yourself those 4 questions and scored yourself 0 to 10. So last section before we get to the final illustration of where you're at on the scale of positive uncertainty. Be practical and magical about what you do. How often do you pursue the impossible? And one of the things I've done over 10 years is I've published a blog, navigatethechaos.com, navigatethechaos.com. I challenge myself to do a blog for every single day of the year. And this year is a leap year. So there's 366 days this year. And I did about 4 years ago. And then that leap year, I actually finished. And every day, pretty much since, I polish it up. And I ask myself a different question every day. I use historical references, academic research papers, and a host of other backstories to populate every blog post. And when you put them all together, it's actually an 800-page book. And what I have found is that people that are at the top of their game, people who you may have heard of or you've never heard of, they have all pursued the impossible. Someone in their life told them that what they were trying to do was impossible. Okay, well, I'm going to go try to do the impossible. How about that? People do the impossible all the time. They're regular human beings like me and you. They just have chosen to pursue the impossible, right? I'm a first-gen college grad from Southwest Philly, grew up in a row home, had no business getting a college degree, but I did. Got a master's, got a PhD. Every step of the way, I'm like, this is impossible. And then you just do it. You just do it. How often do you remind yourself, second component here, that children learn to walk by falling over time and again, and that you can apply the same principle to almost anything in life? I refer you to Viola Davis's book, where she says, my biggest discovery was that you can literally recreate your life. One of the fascinating things is that when you're in the presence of a toddler and they're trying to walk and there's 10 people in the room, generally speaking, unless they're clueless, all 10 of those adults are going to help that kid walk. They're going to move the table. They're going to make sure the kid doesn't trip over a toy, whatever the case is, right? But when you're an adult, what happens? Somewhere along the way, people stop watching out for you. And they actually watch as you bump into the table, trip over a step. And years ago when I started like these types of presentations, I see like if this was a room full of like whatever it is, 50 people, heads would be going up and down right now. Because all of you know what the hell I'm talking about. Oh yeah, I actually do help my little kid walk, or my cousin, or my niece, my nephew, whatever. Right. Well, how often do you help someone else, an adult, who might need some guidance? How often do you remind them that they can recreate their life when they have lost hope? Right? You've got to be practical and magical about what you do. You have the power. Next component here about being practical and magical. How often are you doing work that you love to do? Pursue the things you love, Maya Angelou said, and then you'll do them so well that people can't take their eyes off of you. Now, does this have to be a full-time job? No. You can do local theater. My goodness, there's so many great, talented, wonderful people in local theater that have full-time jobs during the day. They just love to act or direct or do set design or produce or write. I mean, I always think of the world of local theater when I talk about this. And if you haven't been to a local theater, get to one. Musicals and plays that are fascinating demonstrations of watching people do what they love to do. And they have a job that just pays the bills, whatever it is. Their sole existence doesn't come from what they do for work, because they realize they're not one-dimensional. They're two or even three-dimensional human beings. So how often during the 10-day period do you do work that you love to do? Oh, I think this is the third one here. How often do you use your imagination? And I'm stealing Einstein's quote: logic will get you from A to B, imagination will take you everywhere. When you're a child, right, there's no logic. It's all imagination. And many people have done this. You can make a strong case that the US educational system just beats the imagination out of the child, just destroys imagination. In fact, it frowns upon it, it rejects it, it does not invite it anymore. And that's quite sad, because if you look at people that have accomplished the impossible, well, that's what they did. They imagined. It started with a dream, an image. So when's the last time you used your imagination? And I don't care if you're 25, 45, or 85 or 95. When have you used your imagination? Sometimes life beats it out of people and they've lost what it meant to imagine. I would say go find it. Go get it back. So out of those four, what's your score out of 40 possible points? And here's why. So we've looked at these 16 questions based on the 4 principles of positive uncertainty. Be aware and wary about what you know. Be objective and optimistic about what you believe. Be focused and flexible about what you want. And be practical and magical about what you do. And so we're going to gray out the text and put in red the scale, right? Horizontal and vertical axis here. If you have a 40, I don't even have a 40 for each of the 4, by the way. Heads up, I don't have a 40. It looks like this, right? You're going to connect the dots. No one is perfect. All right, you're perfect. You're right. You've proven me wrong. Okay, you're perfect. No one is perfect. If this is what it looks like, okay, it's probably going to look like this. You're going to put yourself and be aware and wary about what you know in the upper left, 0 to 40. What's your score? Maybe it's, 30. I don't know. Be focused and flexible about what you want. This maybe is only 15. And then here, be optimistic, objective and optimistic about what you believe. Well, that's close to 0. And then practical and magical about what you do, about 20. So what you've identified through this assessment, there's one area of positive uncertainty to work on, is that you're probably not optimistic to any great degree. And that's probably something to consider moving forward in your life. Why are you not as optimistic as you probably should be? which one of those 4 questions resonates with you the most, and then start to work on that. I've hopefully have gotten into the practice of never telling anyone what to do. Live your life the way you want to live your life. Be kind to everyone. Be nice to yourself. But in these professional development and personal development workshops, I try to use scales or images to illustrate where you're at, and just posing questions. There's enough books to tell you what to do and how to live, for the love of it all. I don't want to tell you anything. Just want you to ask questions to yourself. This is a lost art. We are drowned out by screens, by the dreaded TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat and the 101 other diversions that we have in our cell phone, right? And sometimes we use that time to prevent ourselves from looking at ourselves. And I would just ask you, is that really how you want to grow as a person or a professional? I would hope that you want to spend some time asking yourself some of these questions and exploring what it means to answer them. I really thank you for your attention. I don't know if everyone is here or if everyone left, which is the fun part when you're just talking to a screen. This is my email. Like I said, I'm more than happy to entertain follow-up questions. Alicia, I gave you 6:54, so that's 5 minutes. I can hang out for a minute or two afterwards. I just want to thank everyone for your time tonight. And if it's the second time you're joining us, fantastic. Thank you so very much. I know we're having a third one. What's this month? February, March. I don't even know what the March topic is, but we'll do March, April, and May, all very different topics. And so I thank you one and all, and I hope that was some help. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Okay, so Anthony is there. Thank you, Anthony. Second time. Thank you very much, Tony. I appreciate the kind words very much. Alicia, are you there? Not sure if Alicia's there. Ozama Apara, a second
I am
time. Thank you.
here.
Oh, there you go. Very good.
I'm just pulling up my
Yep.
information. I wanted to give everybody a minute just in case they wanted to make comments
Sure.
before I did our closing remarks.
Great. Thank you, Ravi. Sarat, what does one do with the scale? Actually, I'm such a nerd. I hang mine up where I can see it every day. And I remind myself like what question I want to work on or what aspect of positive uncertainty. And look, there are days I'm like, no, I'm just having a bad day. I'm not practicing positive uncertainty at all. And that's just the way of the world. I'm mad at the world. I'm mad at myself. And I have self-pity. And that's fine. As my wife said, you're allowed to engage in self-pity, but just put a time limit on it. So I think that's important. With the scores. Oh, sure. Thank you. All the comments here are wonderful. Really appreciate it. If you work on projects over months every now and then, does that? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Actually, some of the most successful people, Yavuz, if I'm saying your name correctly, sorry if I'm not. Some of the most successful people I know are working on literally 6 or 8 different projects over the course of a year or two. So that's certainly something normal. How do you fight the fear of switching jobs? Oh, Prasanna. Oh, I've been there. I have been there. I think you have to let go. I think you have to let go that you're making the wrong decision. You do your homework. Hopefully you have some confidants. If you want, you can talk to me. I'm a complete stranger. Email me and I'm happy to schedule some time to chat with you. Too many people stay in terrible jobs. They stay in toxic cultures. They stay with the boss that doesn't help them, that doesn't help them grow, doesn't support them, doesn't allow them time off to take their dog to the vet. I mean, you've got to really put yourself in a kind and loving work environment and let go of the fear that you're making the wrong decision. At the end of the day, you have the power to decide whether or not it was a wrong decision. And you can, let's say you do make a wrong decision. Guess what? You then go get another job. And then, you just have the capacity to be so much more than you are if you're willing, as we said in the beginning, right, to run the gauntlet of uncertainty. You have to run that gauntlet of uncertainty. And when you do it once, you exhale. You do it a second time, you inhale and exhale. And by the third, fourth time you run that gauntlet of uncertainty, it just becomes second nature. You just becomes part of you and it's an extension of you. And then you can be really proud of yourself. But sometimes that first step, yeah, I get it. I've been there. It's really great. Let's see, you brought up being comfortable with questions without answers, but also about chasing the impossible. Don't those kind of go against each other, or does it come down to the reason you're chasing the answer? And that's a really good question. I think, like for me, and I'll use my own life, right? Oh, of course, Prasanna, anytime, happy to help you. The impossible for me was getting a PhD. Like, what when I was a kid from a lower middle class home in Southwest Philly. Loving parents, kind parents, great neighborhood. I'm still friends with so many of my neighbors on Facebook. It's fantastic. I thought that was impossible to go get a PhD, but I did it anyway. I did it anyway. So that's like pursuing the impossible. Questions you don't have the answers to, or like, I'll give you a very personal example. I mean, if I don't, I'm very comfortable sharing. Um, like my father was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer June 28th and died July 10th. This was back in the summer of 2015. And the question that could not be answered was, how could my dad, he went to the doctor like every 3 seconds. He had a splinter, he had a headache, whatever it was. Yeah, he and my mom like went to the doctors all the time. Their medical files were like encyclopedias. How could a man that, yes, he did smoke when he was younger, but then he stopped. How could a man who went to the doctors all the time, had x-rays all the time, had every assessment under the sun, how could he all of a sudden be diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer? What happened to stage 1, stage 2, stage 3? What about early detection? And then he dies 12 days later? That's a question that can't be answered. I had to let it go. I just had to let it go. I had my mom to care for. That's the difference. And I hope that makes sense. But I think you've got to differentiate in your life between pursuing something that you think is impossible versus hanging on to a question that just can't get answered. You've been wonderful tonight. It's 7 o'clock. Thank you, one and all. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Alicia, any parting words for everybody?
Yes, I just wanted to thank you all for joining us. I hope you found this session useful. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar, and that is not updated on here, but I will I will share that on social media. If you follow at NJIT Alumni on Instagram or our Facebook page or our LinkedIn page, that information is updated frequently. It's a pinned post on our Instagram page right now, so that information is there. If you actually bear with me for a second, I will pull it up so that we can mention it right here.
And I will give everyone my LinkedIn profile. Let's see, where is that at?
Okay, so our next
There's my LinkedIn profile. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you wish. I will also post the notices for the March one. Yeah, I don't know what that topic is, but
March 20th, 6 p.m. Take calculated risks by traveling outside of your comfort zone.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, it would help. You think I wrote this? You think I would remember? Yeah, so that one's traveling outside of your comfort zone. So yeah, it's kind of the only way to grow. But yes, very much appreciative, Alicia, for your time and support, and everyone here. And good luck, everyone, with positive uncertainty. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you.